If it wasn't apparent from the title of this video, I will be comparing the two parts of Wicked and Wicked for Good, the new films that are out. So, if you haven't seen them and you still want to, now would be a good time to click off. Okay, full steam ahead. Hi YouTube friends, it's Trish here, and welcome to my little corner of the internet. Today I'd like to ramble about Wicked Part 2, and how, to me, it felt like a letdown after all the hype leading up to its release. Let me start off by saying I did not grow up watching the Broadway rendition of Wicked the musical, nor did I read Wicked the book, which the play is derived from. But hello, I grew up a Disney kid, and I'm Indian, so characters breaking out into song and dance is nothing new to me. I decided to go see Wicked last year because of the casting of Ariana Grande, the Mariah Carey of my generation in my musically uneducated opinion. And Jonathan Bailey, recent heartthrob from the many times I've binged season 2 of Bridgerton. His yearning gaze, my god. The set photos and clips that were circulating on Instagram looked colorful and large-scaled, and it seemed like it was going to be a good time. I've loved large ensemble song and dance moments ever since I watched Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella starring Brandy. That ballroom dance number, I mean, come on. I may not have grown up a theater kid, but the dance studio and competition stages were my second home. I was enamored by productions with beautiful sets and amazing costumes, with the music crescendo and everyone twirling and moving in sync. Okay, let me get back on track. All I knew going into watching Wicked was that it was the story of the Wizard of Oz from the Wicked Witch of the West perspective. I love an opposite perspective story. I mean, Maleficent? Incredible concept. People are not born evil, evil is made. To be completely honest though, I was never a huge fan of The Wizard of Oz. That being said, I was not prepared to feel the feelings that the first part, Wicked the movie, pulled out of me. The majority of the sets were stunning, the singing was phenomenal. I actually found that I liked most of the songs. Glinda was hilariously ridiculous, but Ariana Grande's acting surprised me. I knew she'd been a child actress and was on a show on Nickelodeon, but her softer moments and even the few heavier moments, the emotions she was able to convey through a gaze or an eyebrow scrunch, and we all know how I feel about an eyebrow scrunch. I was pleasantly surprised. And the dynamic between her and Cynthia Erivo, amazing. Their on-screen chemistry was so good, from them tiffing back and forth as enemies to them forming a genuine friendship. I still tear up at the scene where Glinda comes forward and begins dancing with Elphaba, and the moment when Elphaba has a tear fall and Glinda wipes it away. I'll start crying thinking about it right now. I found out that I was really enjoying the setup to the second movie. Even the love triangle that was forming between Glinda, Fiyero, and Elphaba was believable and both touching and a little sad to watch develop. Most of that ended up not living up to the layup from the first to the second part, and that is a true bummer. And it wasn't just the direction of the story that I found lacking. Let me break it down for you. I felt so bad coming out of the theater after watching Wicked for Good, feeling absolutely meh. I'd gone into the theater with high expectations since I found that I really enjoyed part 1, and all the Wicked Broadway fans were watching the premieres and coming out of the theaters in tears, and I thought, oh my, I may not be prepared for this. My heart is going to shatter, isn't it? And then I'm sitting there and watching the movie. Where the first film seemed to fly by, nearly 2.5 hours going by like nothing, Wicked for Good felt like sap trickling out of a tree slow. The buildup of their friendship, leading to the betrayal of finding out the man that's been idolized your entire existence is a fraud, was captivating and exhilarating. And I thought moving into part 2, that would only amp up, with the two friends going their separate ways but still having nothing but love for each other. I was so ready to continue watching the strife and add in the love triangle, and it just felt like things were going to be devastating. Though to be fair, I don't feel like Glinda ever truly loved Fiyero, but I'll get into that later. I just did not feel the devastation, and I felt so bad because what was wrong with me? There were so many fans that were shattered coming out of the theaters with tear-streaked faces. Why didn't I feel that? And I cry at everything now. I think it comes down to a few aspects: storyline, music, and sets. Let's talk music first. I didn't know any songs other than Defying Gravity going into seeing Wicked. I didn't even know that song was from the play. I remember hearing it on the radio as a teen and getting Idina Menzel's song, and the album art was just her in like jeans and a nice top, and there was all this sunlight. So I thought it was her song. Anyway, I truly enjoyed most of the songs from the first part. Nearly all of them. Most were fun and high energy, but there were stronger and deeper meanings in a few that tugged at my heart. The yearning in I'm Not That Girl, and the devastation in I Hope You're Happy the second time around, when they're realizing that they're going to be treading different paths moving forward, but truly wanting happiness for the other. Which, when they're in opposition, I'm not sure how they expected that to pan out, but I was sat and ready to watch. I didn't feel emotions while watching the songs from the second part. Nearly every song in the first part made me feel something. From the music, the lyrics, the portrayal of the characters through the actors, I felt it. That first song, No One Mourns the Wicked, even though it is an ensemble song with a crowd being happy and cheering, I felt Glinda's pain. I had no idea about the story. I cannot emphasize this enough. But I felt it in her gaze as she was looking up at the large-scale Alphaba. She was in anguish internally. And juxtaposing that with Ariana Grande's comedic timing afterwards, I was immediately sucked in. I did learn that there were 2 new songs that were added to the second part, one each for Glinda and Alphaba. It's just much of the songs from the second part are such a drag, and these 2 new ones that were added, well, they're pretty depressing since both feel isolated and alone, so it makes sense. It's just, how to put this? Adele has sad songs that I will put on repeat and drown my heart in wine in. And yes, that is a Norah Jones reference. And it's not like these 2 can't sing. Ariana Grande, the Mariah Carey of my generation, in my musically uneducated opinion. And I wasn't aware of Cynthia Erivo before Wicked, but after The Wizard and I won't be forgetting their name anytime soon. So, skill is not the issue. The second part just doesn't have great songs. The ones I liked were reprisals from the first part. Who knows? Maybe with another watch I'll pick up on something, but the first part didn't take multiple watches for me to love the songs. But the real meat of my issue with part 2 is how the story ended up going and finishing out. So, this may not be the movie's fault, as it is based off of the play, which is based off of the book, Wicked. However, I am surprised that they didn't take this opportunity to address and change some of the elements to make it better. Events that I had wondered would happen from what was set up in the first part didn't happen. And what did happen in the second part didn't feel as impactful as my own predictions. The first part of Wicked lays out a foundation of tragic happenings that feel completely unfair and unjust. Alphaba being ostracized as a child from her own father and bullied from all the other children, being blamed for her mother's death and her younger sister's condition when it was her father's actions that led them there. The animals slowly being alienated in a community in which up until recently they had been living harmoniously alongside. Watching Alphaba's trust and devotion shatter as she comes to realize the man she'd idolized her entire life and wholeheartedly believed that he could fix everything. He turns out to be a sham and a sorry excuse for a man, let alone a wizard. I was ready for the battle that seemed imminent from the ending of part 1. I mean, she went out with the magnificent declaration that she will expose him, that she's going to defy gravity and all of that. I was ready to watch Alphaba rain havoc on the wizard. I expected the people to be terrified of her and having reason to, because she was going to be frightening in her retribution on the Wizard of Oz. And that didn't happen. She freed some bison who were being forced to pull the machine that's laying brick and wrote some words in the sky when she knows that Madame Morrible's magic is centered around weather. She also keeps doing magic from the book that made her do a terrible thing by making the monkeys painfully sprout wings. And not only is she continuing to use the book, but she has no freaking idea what she's doing. She says as much at the end when she's trying to save Fiyero. She can read it, but she has no idea what she's saying. Alphaba is supposed to be this prodigy with untapped magical potential. It's why Madame Morrible started to privately tutor her. I expected to see some magic. Especially when it seems that her magical outbursts were a result of her feeling a heightened sense of frustration and anger. This feels like the type of moment that we'd be seeing some more large-scale stuff happening. And sure, we see how the iconic characters and moments from The Wizard of Oz come to be. Yeah, okay. I mean, it feels a little cartoonish at times, but sure. The cub that she rescued grew up to blame her for being a coward since he didn't learn to stand up for himself, even though it was Fiyero who technically took him out of the cage. But whatever. Bok has to be turned into a man made of tin, otherwise he'd die, since Nessa, who's apparently the Wicked Witch of the East, she didn't have magic, did she? Anyway, she tries her hand at magic to force Bok to love her, but in the process, his heart is shrinking? I don't know. And then, to not feel the blows from the guards that are torturing him, Fiyero turns into a man made of straw. I came home and asked my sister if Wicked was a children's book, because these results felt, well, like a children's story. And Alphaba going after Dorothy because she has her sister's shoes. I think I would have believed that more had I felt the sisterly connection between the two. I didn't. So, going after shoes that belonged to her sister that she wasn't all that devastated over just sort of felt meh. And sure, the shoes were originally her mother's, and her father passed her over and gave them to her younger sister. Still, I never got the impression that she really wanted these shoes. So that suddenly being something that she was after, it just felt silly. And it doesn't help that her and Glinda are having a cat fight over Nessa's death place right after she died. Like, the scene was hilarious. Ariana and Cynthia were great at acting their parts. But her sister just died. Like, halfway through that scene, it clicked in my head, and I remembered, oh my god, Nessa just died. Like, they're right by where she died, and they're having this ridiculous fight. You know what it is? The movie suddenly felt like a kid's movie, where part 1 opened up with intense storylines of being an outsider and ostracized, and the turn of public opinion on animals because they're different. I just sat there watching Ariana and Cynthia throwing hands at each other and wondering, what the hell is going on? And are we ever going to get into the meat of the story? At least earlier, when Alphaba comes to make a deal with the wizard and him and Glinda are enticing her to join them to stay, there was something. You could see that she wanted to stay and be with Glinda again as long as they righted their wrongs. Naive, maybe, but at least believable. She misses her friends. She's isolated and on her own, fighting the good fight when no one believes her. But then she finds the caged animals, who are caged. Just 'cause. It's not like the wizard is doing anything to them. There's no test. Just caged. And don't get me wrong, that is horrible. But it was just that. They were just there. It felt odd, no? And then there's the love triangle. Well, I didn't really buy it, and that's so strange because it's Jonathan Bailey. Like, he could give a yearning look to a sack of potatoes and I would believe that he was deeply in love. So what happened here? In the first part, they established that he meets Alphaba first, nearly running her over in the forest, followed by a smattering of banter back and forth. And that was a cute enemies to friends to lovers setup. I could believe it. Then Glinda lays claim because he's a handsome, charming prince, and so naturally they're destined to be. And I loved that. It was hilariously silly, and Ariana made that completely believable. But at the end of the movie, I still believed that it was surface level for her. For them. I never thought that she developed true feelings for him, nor him for her. It was fun and flirty and charming, but there was no depth in connection. Not like what Fiyero was developing with Alphaba while they were alone releasing the cub in the forest. They were opening up to each other and being vulnerable, and I felt it. Then, I don't know what changed from the first to the second part, especially since Fiyero commits treason and runs away to be with Alphaba, and then they have that night together, but I just didn't feel the connection as I did when they were in that forest. And they're in a forest now. But to see Glinda's pain and hurt on her face when she's realizing he's not happy that they're engaged, that he's not involved in wanting to get married. And when he leaves, she's devastated, as if he's broken her heart. I'd rather take that devastation that her friends had this connection that they hid from her. That feels more appropriate, especially that her best friend hid their feelings for Fiyero from her. I feel that is the betrayal that is shattering her to pieces. Because I don't believe for 1 second that it would be about him. But the movie wants me to believe that it is. At least that it is in addition to the friendship betrayal. That her heart hurts when she feels a disconnect when they kiss. That when the guards start to beat him in front of her, she reaches out and is coming to the realization that he loves Alphaba. And she can't disregard that anymore. It's not about her. She can't be mad at him for loving someone else. It's a wonderful scene, beautiful acting from Ariana, but it felt out of place from the build-up from part 1. And I just didn't believe that there was love between them. And the opposite for him and Alphaba. I believed the budding romance in part 1, but I didn't feel the connection here in part 2. And he gave her the yearning look. Maybe it was the contacts. Did Jonathan Bailey have those contacts in part 1? Because I don't really remember that, and it was all I could see in part 2. And frankly, it was slightly disarming and would take me out of the experience sometimes. Alright, on to the villains. They were so cartoonishly funny and not serious. And it's Jeff Goldblum and Michelle Yeoh. Amazing actors. Though to be frank, it being Jeff Goldblum might have been why it felt not serious. Okay, but granted, that's the thing about the Wizard of Oz, right? He's a fraud. He's all pomp and circus, and he's essentially a showman. Why did they decide to turn on the animals? I know he talks about, oh, give the people something to unite against, and all that, but it didn't seem all that needed. The people of Oz have always idolized him. There didn't seem to be an issue that he needed to gain their devotion back from. Maybe there was in the story, but if that's the case, I didn't pick up that from the film. To me, it felt like the Wizard of Oz held the admiration of the people in his fist and that they believed every word that he says. So him just randomly starting to target animals, why? He was seemingly already lording over the land. And Madame Morrible teams up with him. Why? Okay, let's say it's power she's after and he has it, and so I'm gonna team up with that guy and help him even though I outpower him? So, when I was watching the first part and saw the whole man coming into the house drinking from a bottle and the mother taking it and drinking it too, I thought for sure that this was a potion and that it was all an elaborate scheme of the wizards to produce a magical child. Color me surprised when Glinda takes the bottle to the wizard at the end of part 2 and is like, "Alphaba is your daughter," and he's all shocked about it. So, Alphaba has been carrying around what? An empty gin bottle all this time? So wait, why is she green? Like, is it because she's a child of an affair? If that's the case, I'm sure there'd be more colorful children running around. I doubt her mother was the only one in Oz that had an extramarital affair. So then the wizard just happened to accidentally have part in creating a powerful witch? Oh, and he's devastated now because apparently he's always wanted a child. Yeah, maybe it's because it's Jeff Goldblum, who has a very dry comedic line delivery, but I didn't believe him when he said that in part 1. I thought he was saying whatever he could to entice Alphaba over to take his side. Turns out, nope. He's actually always wanted a kid and is devastated that he had a hand in leading to the death of his own child. Leading to my last issue. Glinda has the guards arrest the wizard, and they just do. She has them arrest Madame Morrible, and that powerful witch just gets dragged away without a fight. Glinda tells the people that, hey, the animals are our friends, and they just go with that because, oh yeah, of course, the animals are our friends. If it were that easy, couldn't this all have been done at the beginning of the movie and they would have just gone with it? Because it's been 5 years of propaganda and she's Glinda the Good, and so whatever she says is right. Alphaba's sacrifice almost doesn't seem worth it. Like, I get what she was saying, that the people view her as only wicked. So she will take that moniker so that Glinda can go on to be good and make the change that they want to see. But by the end of the movie, it just didn't feel necessary. That Glinda could have brought her on and told the people, no, this is Elfie and she's my bestie. And like, they'd clap and embrace her. We saw it happen in part 1 at the dance, and it nearly happened earlier in part 2 when Glinda and the wizard were convincing Alphaba to stay and join them. So I guess it just took a while for Glinda to get her shit together, but in the process, she lost all of her friends. At least that's what she thinks. And I hate that. Why does it have to be kept a secret that Alphaba and Fiero survived and ran away together? Why? How could that affect Glinda in a bad way for her to know that her friends are alive and well out there and she's gonna stay behind and lead the people on the path of good? I was just straight up bummed by the end of the movie, and still am, apparently. I have to move on because I can rant about this all day. How the story of Wicked wrapped up in part 2 just did not live up to the expectations that were set up in part 1. And I do believe that might be objectively speaking. Anyway, let's chat more technical movie elements that I found, well, lacking in part 2. Okay, let's first talk sets. In a few words, part 1, though some felt built for a movie, still had the better sets than part 2. Some of the sets in the first part felt like stage sets, sure, Munchkinland especially. Nearly all of them did not feel lived in, but they were so beautiful in so many different ways that I didn't care. Much of part 2 is uninteresting, large, and empty. In the first part, Alphaba's house, though not a safe space for her personally, was a cozy and inviting atmosphere, and one of the very few sets from the second part that I actually kind of liked. I thought Nessa's office was serious, but comfortable. I especially loved the wall artwork behind her desk. Shiz in the first part, oh my god, where to start? So many spaces that we saw, and each one perfect for its use. I especially love the pathways that Alphaba was walking throughout the campus while singing The Wizard and I. Their dorm was overpacked, sure, but felt like a bedroom space for students. The only set from Shiz that felt unrealistic was the library, but that number was so fun to watch that I didn't give a shit. Well, except for the times that I was shivering and cringing every single time Jonathan Bailey stood on a book. I am Indian, so. The Wizard's Hall with the giant head was incredible. After watching the second part, I feel that most of the sets there were large and mostly empty, and you would think that is what my commentary would be for the main hall in this castle, but it's not. It makes sense for that room to be large and empty and imposing as such because there's this large scale, metallic, stoic faced head coming out of the greenery and the flowers, and it's so juxtaposing nature versus machine. It's alarming to stand before and unsettling to witness as the head is talking to you. It's insanely impressive. So, there's no greenery. At least not of the nature variety. So I noticed as I was getting images for the title cards for this video that I don't think I'm seeing flowers. And sure enough, I do a Google search specifically for this room and yep, there's no flowers. There's not even any greenery. Yeah. I guess my mind just sort of created that. It's the way these velvet ropes are hanging and the texture over there and how the light is like there's the contrasting with the shadows and blah 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 and all of that. Anyway, my mind just sort of created it as if it were this greenery and there were these flowers and stuff like that. And yeah, that's not the case. But it is, this head and the whole installation is still very imposing and impressive. The only standout sets from part 2 for me were Glinda and Fiero's wedding setup and maybe Elphaba's treehouse. But even then, So the wedding was gorgeous, soft and ethereal, loved the trees, and the butterflies were definitely the right choice when Glinda walked down the aisle. Elphaba's treehouse was interesting. It had several levels and you could see the different spatial uses for each space, which was unexpected for a woman kind of on the run, or at the very least in hiding. She kind of had an elaborate living space, all things considered. Compare that to Glinda's room, which is so outrageously large and empty. I feel like they were going for elegant minimalism, but it just didn't feel that way. And sure, I guess there could be something said for her space really emphasizing her own isolation and loneliness, how she is also a prop to be used by Madame Morrible and the wizard, so I guess. It's just such a stark difference from the room that she shared with Elphaba at Shiz. I expected a princess room with a large canopy 4-poster bed and lots of throw pillows and pretty items on the walls. I don't know, something. Anyway, another set that I just didn't really get was the West Castle. Or really, the ruin that was the West Castle. Why was it a ruin? I get that Fiero said that it's a castle of his family's that goes mostly unused, but it's still a castle of the royal family. So there would be people that would be taking care of it and making sure that it was ready if and when the royal family ever decided to pop over. Just saying. I really just wanted to pop in and say that I don't hate this set in general. I think it's a really neat location. Because Fiero told us this was a castle of his family's, I was confused at why it was, one, in this state, and two, what kind of space is this? Like, in terms of a castle, what was this used as? Like, essentially it kind of looks as if it was this big room with a whole bunch of columns, and we've knocked out the center of all the columns. I don't know, I'm confused. Cool set doesn't make sense for like what we knew about this place. So I almost wish, and maybe he did in the movie and I just didn't pick up on it, but when he's saying like, oh yeah, it's this castle that my family hardly uses, Just sort of like, this is not what I expected when we got over here. So, yeah. But okay, it's a ruin. Why is it so dark? Alphaba is not supposed to be our villain, but in this moment with her song and the look and feel of the ruins and the orange storm clouds, I don't know, it all just felt evil. Like she's entering her villain era. And maybe, according to the storyline, she kind of is. I mean, they did take the love of her life and kill her sister, so she is going on a rampage. But did it have to look so drab? I mean, Castle Cair Paravel in Narnia Prince Caspian is also a ruin, and it's gorgeous still, with the walls crumbling and the greenery taking over. But when the four siblings stand in the place where their thrones once sat, it was so sad and melancholy. Sure, we know what it once looked like, and we've never seen the West Castle in all its glory, but it is still a castle, so we can imagine it. I just feel like she could have been in a nicer looking place, and by the music and her acting, it still hit as an impactful moment. It didn't need to be so visually drab. It's just that most of the sets from what I remember of part 1 are lived in beautiful spaces, and most of what I remember from part 2 are large and empty spaces, which is boring to watch. The costumes. Well, there isn't too much to elaborate on here. Part 1 was better. Much better. Both Alphaba and Glinda have cute outfits in part 1 that spoke so much to their different personalities and were real looking outfits for that world. Part 2, well, let's just say it all together. It looked drab. So just like how earlier my memory was creating things that weren't there, over here I feel like the opposite kind of happened. I think I was just so bummed while watching the movie that my mind just sort of painted a broad stroke of like, blah, it all kind of sucks. And it's actually not the case, at least in terms of coming to the costuming, or at least for Glinda. I do think that she still kind of had, really all I noticed was the top left flouncy pink outfit. And then after that, actually kind of for both of them, they don't have a lot of outfits this movie. In Alphaba's case, that does make sense that we kind of really only see her in this jacket. In that bottom right photo, it seems like she's wearing a different dress there. I don't know if she is or not, so that sucks. I mean, I get it. She's on the run, living in hiding, but if it's been like 5 years, I would think she'd still have a couple of options. But anyway, I think what was bugging me about Glinda's wardrobe, in particular to the majority of the scenes we were seeing her, was kind of in her wedding dress. That second image up there, I don't really know if I noticed that big a difference from there to her walking down the aisle. I do believe that there is an added like skirt element that's making it puffy around her hips when she's walking down the aisle, so somehow there's, I think, an added attachment over there. But yeah, I kind of wish they didn't do that. I like the idea of this pink robe that she was wearing over the dress when they were dancing with the wizard and stuff like that. I don't know, I'm kind of bummed that we like saw a peek of her wedding dress before actually seeing her walk down the aisle in it. So that already took out some of the beauty that would have been there for that moment. And then add on top of that, I really am not partial to this neckline. I don't understand why there's this sort of slight off-center like cut out. I don't know. When you compare it to the next image with the blue pink dress, like we're used to kind of seeing Glinda like that when she's around all the people, right? It's this like very princess big dress, very flouncy, lot of embellishments. So to see her wedding dress be so modern in comparison and really contemporary leaning, it's just like, and I'm no fashion person, I'm sorry, like I say these words, but I don't really know what I'm talking about. For personally me, I was underwhelmed. And I think it was a combination of already kind of seeing what she was going to be wearing and then like it leaning so modern contemporary that it's taking me out of the world, really. I think is what I'm going at, because I love a contemporary look just in general, but for this world and for her character, for me it does not make sense. And yeah, I'm kind of bummed for both of them that we didn't get more outfits, but I like for the storyline, I guess I understand why. It's just that there were so many in the first movie. So yeah, it's hard not to be like, well, the first movie had better outfits because, well, the first movie had more outfits. And like, yeah, there's a thing about they were in school over there, and over here they're like out of school, so essentially kind of adults. And so there's also that element. They have matured. Yeah, yeah. I mean, fair point. That's fair. Anyway, just wanted to pop in and say that. The two that are coming to mind are Glinda's wedding dress and Alphaba's night outfit / home clothes, because the rest was mostly forgettable. Actually, you know what it is? Remember when Netflix's live action of Avatar: The Last Airbender came out and everyone hated the costumes? And the main feedback was that they felt like Halloween costumes, that they were too bright and clean and didn't feel lived in. That might be too harsh in terms of Glinda. She had a couple of outfits that were cute. I think they just blended in together because for the most part she keeps to the blush pink color scheme. But that is how most of the costumes for part 2 felt to me. At least most especially for Alphaba, who is on the run or in hiding, and so has outfits that mostly appear to be coming apart at the seams, kind of ragged. I think they were going for distressed, but the outfits didn't look it. They looked made to look distressed, which in my opinion, failed. Anyway, back to the two outfits that come to mind from the second part. Glinda's wedding dress, her wedding dress. It was so simple and uninteresting. And this is Glinda. The neckline especially was weird. I don't know, it felt like a draft and not like a final design. And then Alphaba's oversized sweater wrap. Gray did not feel like a natural color to match her surroundings. I think I would have preferred a deep red to a maroon. And as I said before, it seemed like forced distressed. I see the vision, I do, it looks new. That's it. Most of Alphaba's costumes felt like they felt new, even though they should feel tattered and worn down. And then Glinda had one flouncy blush pink dress after another, and most of them had so many embellishments until her wedding dress, where she suddenly went abstract contemporary. I do get that the story is supposedly darker now, so we're not gonna have fun, lively outfits like there was in part 1. I do get that. It's just what they were going for in part 2, just mainly for Alphaba, kind of missed the mark for me. And I think with Glinda, her outfits just tend to blend into each other. Whereas in part 1, I don't feel like they did. Like, she still had this whole mostly pink costuming, but I don't know, her outfits were more recognizable then? I don't know. Let's just move on. I'm bummed out. I get that part 2 is darker in theme, in theory, but darker doesn't have to mean drab and empty. I'm sad because part 1 was exhilarating and promising, and I was so looking forward to watching the second part, and for it to be, well, what it is, it's disappointing. And most of what it is the storyline, which again is no fault of the movie as it's based off of the play, which is based off of the book. But this could have been an amazing opportunity to deviate and make it better. Say that it was inspired by the characters in the story of Wicked and then fix the problems. I don't know, maybe there's something about copyright. That might be the case. Whatever, I'm bummed. And I felt so bad for feeling so because I saw so many reels of people in tears and I felt nowhere near that type of emotion while watching the second part. I maybe welled up a little when Glinda was in the closet and Dorothy was killing Alphaba. But by that point in the movie, I was already so disappointed and I just wasn't engaged as I would have been. And frankly, leading up to this point, there were so many shenanigans that suddenly getting so depressing and sad was a whiplash moment. I don't know. I'm bummed. Eventually, I chalked it up to these fans were likely fans of the musical play and had grown up watching it, much like I was sobbing in the theater during Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows because it was senior year of college and thus my childhood was officially coming to an end. They must love these characters in the same way. And that is sad. I mean, I lean more frustrated and angry because I don't see why Glinda has to be kept in the dark about Alphaba and Fiero, but that's just me. How about you? How did you feel about Wicked for Good? Or Wicked in general? Did it live up to your expectations? Maybe you can convince me to think a little differently about this. Thank you so much for watching. I am still kind of new to this video essay format. This only maybe the third or fourth on my channel in general, so still getting my bearings, but with each one I do feel like it's the right path. So especially for a rambler like me, it kind of helps me to like organize my thoughts and get it out in a little, I don't know if concise is really the word I want to go for, but a little bit more clearer. And I don't know. I think it just works a little better to formulate my thoughts and opinions that are, you know, always subject to change. So anyway, but still, thank you for watching. I don't know if the next video is going to be maybe a Kisses Through My Ages installment, which, if you don't know about that, it's a series on my channel in which I am ranking the final kiss of rom-com movies that I've watched through my ages on a tier ranking list that I have created myself. And it has gone through an evolution, as so much does on my channel. And anyway, the last upload for it was Pride and Prejudice. It's up on my channel right now. So yeah, likely that will be the next video upload. And if it's not, it'll be me watching Once Upon a Time because I needed a break. So if either of those interests you, please come back next week. And yeah, that's about it. Toodles.